So how does our faith help us trust through times of change in our lives? Let's talk about it. This is Bite Size Theology. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bite Size Theology, a ministry of Springfield First, where we tackle big topics around faith, one bite at a time. I'm your host, Allison Means, and today I am joined one last time by Justin Snyder, and we're going to talk about change.
Change. I'm going to have a drink.
Of water in a coffee cup.
I've been joking, I've been kind of a lame duck pastor or whatever, but no, change is upon us.
Yes.
And us, actually, because in our own unique ways, I'm about to start at another church, and Allison, your family's growing, and this summer is going to look a little bit different for you.
Just a little bit.
So change, yes. You know how there's some people who, they just welcome all changes. They're great with it. If they have an opportunity to do something new, they jump for it all the time. What's new? What's next? And then there's probably other folks we know where they avoid change at all costs.
Yeah.
They don't want to change at all. They want things to be exactly the same. And I guess I would probably say I'm somewhere in the middle there. How about you?
Definitely somewhere in the middle.
In the middle?
Yeah. Because change can be exciting, but also is a little bit scary.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess bottom line, or the most important thing I would say is that those seasons of change do invite us as followers of Jesus to trust.
Yeah.
I think trust, again, is a key word anytime, but particularly during times of change.
Oh, yeah.
Where things are going to look different, things aren't going to be the same. And that can be hard on an emotional level, depending on what the change is.
Oh, yeah.
But I just, talking out of my own experience, it's hard to leave a church that you love after 7 years and people you've been around. And so each change requires its own kind of work. Yeah. And I'll never forget when I was in seminary, this mentor who was on staff, who was in charge of sending us out to field ed placements, they were called, kind of internships. Mm-hmm. He said, every time I switched churches, it took a year of processing and mourning to receive that change completely. And I was like, really? A year? But now I get it. After I've done that a few times now, I totally understand that. And so I'm not usually, I don't think I'm anyone very different to how other people experience change. But it requires some processing.
Oh, yeah.
And it also requires us and invites us to trust.
Oh, yeah. Even when it is joyful, welcomed change, there's a lot of processing that has to happen. And there's a mourning of what you knew. Yeah. That has to happen too.
Right.
To even really accept the joy of what's coming.
Yes. Yeah. And on that, let me just turn the tables on you now, because you have some changes coming up. And how are you approaching that season of change?
So it's really interesting that you would turn this on the host. But we're welcoming a baby girl. And I already have a son who at this time will be 7. Mm-hmm. So he's been the only child for a long time. And actually the other day, I think it's starting to get really real to him. Huh. And he had kind of a crisis about it. And we were in the middle of some other stuff where he was really tired and, emotional. And he kind of broke my heart because he stopped and he looked at me and tears in his eyes, said, he was worried that we were going to love him less. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to cry talking about it because, but that fear is really real. He's excited to be a big brother.
Yeah.
But he's also scared, what if they love this baby more than they love me? And parents know that is not how it happens. But oh man.
I think we need those times of marking transitions and just to recognize, hey, things are changing.
Yeah.
In the church world, we even have liturgies where or they reflect upon maybe a new pastor coming in, or it's we have ways to kind of communally work through times of change. But then there also, that has to include also that personal work that
Right.
we are
Yeah.
invited to. And that's more the off-camera stuff, and that sometimes can be hard, where you mourn what has been, and you're not quite certain what you're looking at now,
Right.
or you know how the story ends in the past, but the new and the uncertain is also different.
Right. And that's scary in its own right.
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
That unknown.
I've been reading an author recently in my own devotional time who talks about our compulsive need for control, and how one thing that Jesus invites us to do is to let go of some of that control. But seasons of change make that difficult.
Yeah.
Because when life starts changing, we want to control things that we can control.
Right.
It's just kind of natural how that happens. But we're also invited, I think, to maybe not grasp onto everything as tightly as maybe we have in the past. But practically speaking, if someone were to ask me, okay, how do you trust in times of change? What are some things you can do? I think some of the basic practices that we talk about all the time also apply in those seasons of change. For example, taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, spiritually. And so what does that look like spiritually? It means when you're going through a period of time, period of change, are you finding time for Sabbath and solitude and prayer?
Right.
Not just quick prayers on the way somewhere, but like, are you focusing times for prayer? Are you being a part of a faith community, which can be so grounding during those periods of change?
Yeah.
And so if someone was, let's say, moving to a new city, I would really encourage that person to find a community of faith to be a part of. Be there on Sunday morning or whenever that community gathers, to simply have that opportunity to work through that season in a form of community. Right. And the other practices I think also are important as well. This is not just, I say this not to give one more thing to do, but actually that could be really helpful to be a very grounding. It can be a very grounding thing to have practices, especially if we know change is coming and we have a little bit of a runway or an on-ramp.
Yeah.
So it's not happening immediately where we have to respond. But if we see it months out, maybe we can plan an approach to those changes that can ground us in some of those Christian practices that are so crucial.
Yeah, I think in making them like a priority, those practices in your routine, because routine, having that grounding thing that is the same, even when things around you are not, can just kind of help your whole being, physically, emotionally, spiritually, just to breathe a quick, sigh of relief every so often. Like, yes. I know this is familiar.
Many of us struggle with the feelings that the new situation kind of churns up. Yeah. And we don't know what to do with that, or we get tired of those very quickly. Saying in a new situation where, let's say we left our friends behind in the place where we used to be, or whatever, new job, we still don't know how things work. And the first time we hit some challenges in that new job, it's like, no, I don't know how this is going to turn out. And that can churn up a lot of stuff within us. But there again, if we could have some way to keep ourselves anchored during those times of transition and change, I think our trust is strengthened during those moments.
Yeah. I think also, reflecting back on God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
Is really helpful in those moments where things are really uncertain, where you go, okay, and I've been in uncertain places before, and I've been through changes before, and God didn't leave me then.
Yeah. I was thinking about that in context of journaling. I'm not a huge journaler. I have done it a little bit, and yet it seemed like that would be a great gift to journal through whatever the transition is, not for what we get immediately or in that season, but to look back eventually and see how God was with you,
Yeah.
almost like a reminder. I tend to forget certain details about how something happened. And so having a way to journal through those transitions, and when I journal, I do not write even paragraphs. It's more of kind of, here's what's happening or a thought. I try to keep it simple. But looking back, I just did this recently where I looked back what I was writing a year ago, and I'm reminded of the ways that God was involved and present. And that could be a great gift that we can give to our future selves if we can do that. Now, it takes some discipline now. But yeah, I think that could be very helpful as another practice. Any other practices that have been helpful to you when you walk through seasons of change?
Let's see. Community. I'm an extrovert. I need people. I mean, even introverts need people.
I tell myself that a lot.
Even introverts need people, Justin. I almost said purple. Sometimes you need purple too. But making sure that you've got people, whether they're physically around you or whether it's, a phone call with people or internet friends are real friends. Just making sure that you have community who you can be vulnerable with and who will support you through. It's not always, they can't always fix it.
Right.
But they can help you be heard. Sometimes you just need to say stuff. Sometimes you just need to say, like, I am struggling. And just need someone to listen to you.
Yeah. And hopefully we get to the point where we can look back and see, oh, there were some challenges. There were some really hard things maybe that came, but there were great blessings as well that also emerged during that time. And if we've seen that in the past, why wouldn't that happen in the future?
Right.
I have to ask myself that, kind of like what you were saying there. But yeah, it's hard, but those who fight change, it just seems like it's the losing battle because things are always changing.
Right.
And we're always in some way invited into a season of change. And so pretending like things aren't changing seems to be a dead-end path long term.
Yeah. You're never going to win that battle.
Yeah.
No one can exist in stasis.
Yeah.
That's not living.
Yeah. So I don't know. A year from now, I'll tell you how it went. But
okay. All right.
you can have me back. All right. So I'll come
back. I'll bring my toddler at that point.
There you go. Yeah. I look forward to that. Yeah. That'd be fun.
Well, change is hard, but it is necessary. And we know that God is going to continue to use you and Miriam and your family. And we're so thankful for the time that we've had with you here at Springfield First.
Well,
I'm going to cry.
Oh.
We love you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this and all these past episodes of Bite Size Theology. And thank you all for joining us. Yeah. And we hope we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Bite Size Theology, where we take big ideas about faith and break them down one bite at a time. We hope you enjoyed today's conversation and it's given you something to think about and explore further on your faith journey. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review on your podcast app of choice. And if you want to catch up on previous episodes, you can find them anytime at springfieldfirst.org/podcast or on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep growing. God bless.